My ex-girlfriend took her own life because of me. At least that's what I thought, until I started looking into her relationship with her sister. I broke up with my girlfriend because I hated her family. When we first met, my girlfriend was the sweetest girl I'd ever met, the type to sit outside a church and write poems about strangers who pass by, to make you feel like you're on top of the world, even on your worst days. So when we went on a date for a picnic beside a waterfall, and she refused to take off her jumper, I assumed she was just insecure or something. Well, I didn't want to pressure her, so I just reminded her that whatever she did was her decision, and she was beautiful no matter what. After doing this, I put my arm around her, and her face contorted like she was cringing or something, but it wasn't in a disgusted way, more like I'm in pain sort of way. I pulled back and asked if I had accidentally pulled her hair to hurt her, and she shook her head. No, it's not you. It's... She then looked down at the ground while her mouth was half opened, like there was still more she wanted to say. I just looked at her with the most loving eyes I possibly could, and put my hand on her lower back as if to say, I'm not going anywhere. This made her smile, and that's when she finally showed me her arms. It was the most disgusting thing I'd ever seen. Her skin was covered in cuts and injuries, all at the hands of her parents. A rage boiled my blood. I simply couldn't fathom that someone had been hurting my baby girl. So once the shock wore off, I asked if she wanted to sleep over at mine. We were in junior year, so my mom was still iffy about her coming to my bedroom. But I knew that if I explained things to her, she would understand. Luckily, Sarah agreed, and when we got there, she explained everything. She said it so clearly, and I remember being super proud of her. Immediately, my mom lunged at her for a hug and insisted that she could stay as long as she needed. And I guess my mom noticed how surprised I was at her willingness to host, and that's when she sat down at the table and did a long, drawn-out sigh. Turns out, her own parents had been extremely abusive too, and during all those years where my mom felt helpless and alone, she always wished she had an adult figure who understood, who'd keep secrets for her, and now she was happy to be that person for Sarah. Over the next few days, it became very clear that Sarah was going to stay for a lot longer than a few days. My mom had given her the guest bedroom, and even bought her lavender bedsheets, her favorite color, and a new wardrobe of clothes. And whenever Sarah felt like a burden, I made sure to reassure her that she doesn't need to earn love or care, because she was already enough. Every time she heard that, it made her blush really hard and hug me super tight, and I'd fall in love with her all over again. After a few weeks, she started referring to her room as my bedroom, instead of the guest room, and felt comfortable enough to pour her own water and cook meals late at night. But that's when things took a turn. She would get mad at me for hanging out with my friends once every 2 weeks, when we'd all meet up and go to Chili's. You see, Sarah was pretty closed off and didn't really have anyone other than me and my mom. So at first I tried to empathize. I tried to encourage her to make friends who enjoy poetry as much as she does, but she never did. And that's when her punishments began. Whenever I'd come home from seeing my friends, or even just going on a walk without her, I'd catch her in the bathroom self-injuring herself. For context, this was never something she told me about before. Plus, it only happened when I did something to make her upset. But back then, I was just a dumb 16-year-old with the intelligence of a chicken nugget. So to me, the solution was simple. Stop doing anything outside of Sarah. But it seemed like nothing was ever enough for her. Even if I texted my male friends about the homework, or wanted to spend one-on-one time with my mom, it was always the same outcome. Tissue paper soaked in red that I'd find in the bathroom. It got to the point where I even started self-injuring, without telling her of course, and started losing my will to live. And then came my breaking point. I was studying for exams in the after-school study club, one she refused to go to. And when I came home, instead of seeing my once loving and kind girlfriend and hugging her, I was greeted with Sarah pulling down her pants and showing me that she had put my name all over her legs. It was so horrifying that I had to break up with her and told her she had to leave immediately. Even my mom agreed and carried Sarah to the car to drive her home. The days following were awful. I felt somewhat relieved, but mainly guilty. I started to believe that her family was my fault, that I wasn't forgiving enough. And as I went to unblock her at 3 a.m. to apologize, I saw it. A text from her sister. It was short and brutal. Sarah took her life tonight. I hope you're happy. I dropped my phone. I couldn't breathe. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. Then I woke up my mom, showed her the text, and we both just sat on my bed crying for hours. I kept thinking it was my fault. If I hadn't kicked her out, if I'd been more patient, if I'd gotten her professional help instead of trying to fix everything myself. The guilt has been eating me alive for weeks now. I haven't gone back to school. I barely leave my room. My mom's worried sick about me, but I can't seem to snap out of it. Sarah's dead because of me. That's all I can think about. I've been a total zombie since Sarah died. I just lay in bed all day, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of our relationship in my head. My mom tried to get me to eat, but I couldn't stomach more than a few bites of toast. I lost like 20 pounds in 2 weeks. My clothes hung off me like I was a scarecrow or something. My friends kept texting and calling, but I ignored them all. What was I supposed to say? Hey guys, my ex-girlfriend unalived herself because I kicked her out. How's your day going? Yeah, right. I couldn't face anyone. The guilt was crushing me. About 3 weeks after Sarah died, my mom finally put her foot down. She came into my room one morning and opened all the blinds. The sunlight felt like needles in my eyes after spending so long in the dark. Enough, she said. You need a shower, eat a real meal, and at least try to rejoin the living. I wanted to argue, but I didn't have the energy. So I dragged myself to the bathroom and stood under the hot water for like half an hour. It was the first time I'd really felt anything in weeks. When I got out, my mom had made pancakes, my favorite, and I actually managed to eat a whole stack. Small victories, I guess. That afternoon, I checked my email for the first time since everything happened. There were a bunch of messages from teachers about missed assignments and concerns about my absence. I deleted most of them without reading, but then I noticed something weird. An email notification for my school account showed up, but when I clicked on it, there was nothing there. Like it had been deleted before I could read it. I didn't think much of it at the time. Probably just spam or something. I went back to bed and tried to sleep, but my mind kept racing. I kept seeing Sarah's face, kept hearing her voice. I wondered if I'd ever feel normal again. The next morning, I woke up to find an envelope slipped under my bedroom door. No stamps, no return address, just my name written in thick black marker. I tore it open, expecting maybe a sympathy card from one of my mom's friends or something. Instead, there was a single photo inside. It was Sarah, her face bruised, tears streaming down her cheeks. She was looking directly at the camera with this haunted expression that made my stomach turn. In the corner was a date stamp, just 2 days before she moved in with us. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the photo, trying to make sense of it. Sarah had always told me her parents never took pictures of her, especially not when they'd hurt her. They were too careful about leaving evidence. So who took this? And why send it to me now? I flipped the photo over, looking for some kind of note or explanation. Nothing. Just a blank white back. I showed it to my mom when she got home from work. She looked as confused as I felt. Did someone deliver this? She asked. Did you see anyone? I shook my head. It must have been slipped under my door sometime during the night or early morning. The thought of someone being in our house while we slept made my skin crawl. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about that photo. I kept it in my desk drawer, but I'd take it out every few hours to look at it again, like I might notice something new. The bruises on Sarah's face were definitely real. I'd seen similar ones when she first showed me her arms at the waterfall, but something about the way the photo was taken felt deliberate, like someone wanted to document her pain. On Friday, exactly 1 week after I received the first envelope, another one appeared. Same deal. No postage, no return address, just my name in that same thick black marker. This time there was a small USB flash drive inside. I hesitated before plugging it into my laptop. What if it was a virus or something? But curiosity got the better of me. I had to know what was on it. The drive contained dozens of video files, each labeled with a date. With shaking hands, I clicked on the most recent one. It showed Sarah sitting on what looked like her bed at her parents' house. Someone off camera was yelling at her, calling her worthless, saying she'd never amount to anything. I recognized her dad's voice from the one time I'd met him briefly. But then I heard another voice, a female voice that wasn't her mom's. You think anyone actually cares about you? That boy only feels sorry for you. He doesn't love you. It was Sarah's sister, Melissa, the same sister who texted me about Sarah's death. I'd only met her once or twice, and she'd always seemed quiet and withdrawn. But in this video, her voice was dripping with venom. I watched video after video, each one worse than the last. Some showed Sarah being verbally abused, others showed the aftermath of physical abuse, bruises, cuts, welts. But what shocked me most was that in nearly every video, Melissa was either behind the camera or actively participating in the abuse. By the time I finished watching, it was past midnight, and I felt physically sick. I ran to the bathroom and threw up until there was nothing left in my stomach. Then I sat on the cold tile floor, trying to process what I'd just seen. Sarah's sister wasn't just a bystander to the abuse, she was an active participant. And now she was sending me these videos. But why? To make me feel guilty? To show me what Sarah had gone through? Or was there something else going on? I decided to do some digging. I pulled up Sarah's Instagram account, which was still active. I'd looked at it a million times since she died, torturing myself with photos of happier times. But this time, I was looking for something specific. I scrolled all the way back to her childhood photos. There weren't many. Sarah had once told me she deleted most of her old pictures because they reminded her of bad times. But there was one group photo from a poetry camp she'd attended when she was 13. Sarah was standing on the end of the back row, looking thin and nervous, but smiling slightly. I zoomed in on the photo, studying the faces around her. I recognized one of the girls, Lauren Jenkins. She'd been in my English class freshman year before her family moved to Oregon. I still had her on Facebook, though we never really talked. On a whim, I sent her a message. Hey Lauren, weird question, but do you remember Sarah Mitchell from poetry camp a few years back? I'm trying to put together some memories of her for a memorial thing. I didn't expect a response right away, but my phone pinged almost immediately. OMG, I was just thinking about Sarah the other day when I heard what happened. So awful. Yeah, I remember her from camp. She was super talented but really shy. We were roommates for like 2 days before she left early. I perked up at that. Sarah had told me she'd stayed the full 2 weeks at that camp. She said it was one of the best experiences of her life. She left early? Did something happen? I typed back. There was a longer pause this time before Lauren replied. Her sister showed up in the middle of the night, like literally 2 a.m., said there was a family emergency and Sarah had to come home right away. Sarah seemed really scared. I remember because she was crying when she packed her stuff, but trying to be quiet about it. I asked if everything was okay, and she just nodded and said her grandma was sick or something. But it felt off, you know? The counselors weren't happy about it either, but her sister was 18, so they couldn't really stop her. My heart was pounding as I read this. Sarah had never mentioned any sick grandma. In fact, she told me both her grandmothers died before she was born. Did you ever hear from her after that? I asked. No, she kind of disappeared. She was supposed to email me her poems. We were working on this collaboration thing, but I never heard from her again. When school started that fall, I tried to find her on social media but couldn't. I only reconnected with her last year when she finally got Instagram. I thanked Lauren and sat back, my mind racing. Sarah had lied about the poetry camp, and her sister had pulled her out in the middle of the night for a fake emergency. Why? What was Melissa trying to hide? Over the next few days, I dug deeper. I found Sarah's old English teacher, Ms. Patel, on the school website and sent her an email. Sarah had once shown me a comment Ms. Patel left on one of her poems, praising her talent. Sarah had been so proud of that comment, her face glowing as she showed it to me. Ms. Patel agreed to meet me at a coffee shop near school. When I got there, she was already waiting, a stack of papers in front of her. I brought some of Sarah's work, she said after we'd gotten our drinks. She was one of the most talented writers I've ever taught. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Ms. Patel pushed the papers toward me. These are copies of poems she submitted for class, but there's something else I thought you should see. She pulled out a small, worn journal with a blue cover. Sarah left this in my classroom during her sophomore year. I tried to return it, but she seemed afraid to take it back. She said it would be safer with me. I didn't understand what she meant at the time. I opened the journal with trembling hands. It was filled with Sarah's handwriting, poems, diary entries, sketches. As I flipped through the pages, a pattern emerged. Many of the poems were about feeling trapped, about being silenced, about a shadow sister who steals my light. One entry in particular caught my eye. Em watched me talking to the new boy today, said I was being a slut, said if I didn't stop, she'd tell Dad I was sneaking out. I wasn't. I was just asking about homework, but Dad will believe her. He always does. Last time he broke my finger. The date on the entry was from her sophomore year, before I knew her, but the pattern was clear. Melissa had been isolating Sarah, controlling her, for years. She'd tell their parents lies about Sarah to get her in trouble, then position herself as the good daughter. I looked up at Ms. Patel, who was watching me with sad eyes. Did you know? I asked. About what was happening to her? Ms. Patel sighed. I suspected something was wrong. Sarah would come to school with bruises sometimes, or she'd flinch if someone raised their hand too quickly near her. I reported my concerns to the counselor twice, but Sarah always denied everything when they questioned her. And her sister, Melissa, she was such a model student. Honor roll, volunteer work, always so polite to teachers. No one wanted to believe she could be involved in something like this. I felt a surge of anger. All these adults who should have protected Sarah, and none of them did enough. But then again, neither did I. I'd kicked her out when things got too hard. There's something else, I said, and told Ms. Patel about the photos and videos I'd received. Her face paled. You need to take those to the police. I shook my head. And tell them what? That my dead ex-girlfriend's sister is sending me videos? That doesn't prove she had anything to do with Sarah's death. For all I know, Sarah really did unalive herself. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it anymore. What if Melissa had done something to Sarah and made it look like Sewers lied? The thought made me feel cold all over. I copied the journal and returned the original to Mr. Patel for safekeeping. On my way home, I felt like I was being watched. I kept checking over my shoulder, but the streets were mostly empty. Still, the feeling persisted. When I got home, my mom was waiting for me, her face tight with worry. Someone called my work today, she said without preamble. They told my boss that I'd harbored a runaway minor and interfered with a family's right to discipline their child. They're talking about suspending me pending an investigation. My blood blood ran cold. It was Melissa. It had to be. My mom nodded. That's what I thought too. But how would she even know where I work? She's been watching us, I said, and told my mom about the envelopes, the videos, everything I'd learned from Lauren and Mr. Patel. My mom listened without interrupting, her face growing more concerned with each detail. When I finished, she pulled me into a tight hug. I'm so sorry you're going through this, she said. But we need to be careful. If Melissa is capable of doing those things to her own sister, who knows what she might do to you? The next day, I found my bike tires slashed in the school parking lot. The day after that, someone threw a rock through my bedroom window while I was at therapy. My mom's idea. I'd finally agreed to talk to someone about everything that had happened. The message was clear. Melissa knew what I was doing, and she wanted me to stop, but I couldn't stop. I owed it to Sarah to uncover the truth. I started documenting everything, taking photos of the vandalism, saving every message, backing up the videos to multiple locations. I even set up a small camera in my room, just in case Melissa tried to break in again. A month after receiving the first envelope, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello? I said cautiously. Hey there, stranger. It was Melissa's voice, casual and friendly, like we were old pals catching up. I think we should talk, don't you? My heart was hammering, but I kept my voice steady. About what? About Sarah, of course. About how you abandoned her when she needed you most. Her tone was still light, almost playful. Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow at noon. Come alone. She hung up before I could respond. I stood there, phone in hand, trying to decide what to do. Going alone to meet Melissa seemed like a terrible idea, but this might be my only chance to confront her, to get some answers. I decided to go, but not alone. I asked my friend Bruce to come with me, told him to stay out of sight, but close enough to help if things went south. Bruce had been texting me regularly since Sarah died, one of the few friends who hadn't given up on me during my self-imposed isolation. The next day, I arrived at the park 5 minutes early. Melissa was already there, sitting on a bench near the duck pond, sipping a smoothie like this was just a casual meetup. She looked so normal. Shoulder-length brown hair, jeans and a t-shirt, sunglasses perched on top of her head. If I didn't know better, I'd never suspect she was capable of the cruelty I'd seen in those videos. I sat down beside her, leaving plenty of space between us. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Bruce pretending to read a book on a bench about 50 feet away. You came, Melissa said, smiling. I wasn't sure you would. What do you want, Melissa? I asked, cutting to the chase. She sighed dramatically. So hostile, and here I thought we could be friends. Friends? After everything you did to Sarah? After what you're doing to me now? Melissa's smile didn't falter, but something cold flickered in her eyes. Sarah was always too sensitive. A ticking time bomb, really. You were just the match that lit the fuse. I felt sick. Is that why you're doing all this? Sending me those videos? Vandalizing my stuff? Trying to get my mom fired? To convince me I'm responsible for Sarah's death? She laughed, a light, tinkling sound that made my skin crawl. Oh, sweetie, you are responsible. You knew how fragile she was, and you threw her away like garbage. I didn't throw her away, I protested. I was drowning. She was using self-harm to control me, to isolate me from everyone else in my life. And who do you think taught her that trick? Melissa's smile widened. It worked on our parents for years. Do what I want, or I'll hurt myself. Classic Sarah. I stared at her, horrified. You're lying. Sarah wasn't manipulative. She was hurt, traumatized. Melissa rolled her eyes. God, you're as gullible as our parents. Poor little Sarah. So delicate, so special. Do you know how exhausting it was growing up with her? Everything was always about Sarah's feelings, Sarah's needs. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. But you know what? I'm over it now. In fact, I think you and I could have a lot of fun together. Sarah always said you were great in bed. She placed her hand on my thigh, her fingernails digging in slightly. I jerked away, disgusted. You're sick, I said, standing up. Stay away from me and my family. Melissa's face hardened. Or what? You'll go to the police? Tell them the mean sister sent you some videos? Good luck with that. I walked away without looking back, my hands shaking with rage. Bruce caught up with me at the park entrance. You okay, man? What happened? I couldn't even speak. I just shook my head and kept walking. When I got home, I locked myself in my room and recorded everything I could remember about our conversation, saving it to the same drive where I kept the videos and photos. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Melissa had said, about teaching Sarah to use self-harm as a control tactic. Was it possible? Had Sarah been manipulating me all along? No, I couldn't believe that. I'd seen the genuine fear in her eyes when she talked about her family. I'd seen the relief when my mom offered her a safe place to stay. But I had to admit, there were things about Sarah I never understood. The way she'd get so upset when I spent time with anyone else. The way she'd punish herself, and by extension, me, when she didn't get her way. Had those behaviors been learned from Melissa, or was Melissa just trying to mess with my head? I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let Melissa win. Whatever sick game she was playing, I refused to be her pawn. The next day, I went back to Ms. Patel with everything I'd learned. She listened quietly, her face growing more troubled with each detail. This is beyond anything I can help with, she said finally, but I know someone who might be able to. She gave me the contact information for a counselor who specialized in family abuse dynamics. I made an appointment for the following week. In the meantime, I continued gathering evidence, building a file that documented the pattern of abuse Sarah had suffered, and the harassment I was now experiencing. I was so focused on this mission that I almost didn't notice when things started disappearing from my house. Small things at first. A hoodie Sarah had borrowed once, a book she'd given me for my birthday. Then bigger things. One day I came home from school to find the lavender sheets from the guest bedroom gone. The closet where Sarah had kept her clothes was empty. The wall where she'd taped up her poems was bare. My mom called the police, but they weren't much help. No signs of forced entry, nothing of significant value taken. They suggested it might be kids from school playing pranks, despite my insistence that this was connected to Sarah's death and the harassment I'd been experiencing. But I knew better. Melissa was erasing Sarah, or at least Sarah's presence in our home. What she didn't know was that I'd already moved most of Sarah's poems and personal items to a storage box at Bruce's house, just in case. Those poems became my project, my way of fighting back. I spent weeks compiling them into a small zine, a handmade booklet that told Sarah's story in her own words. I included some context, explaining the abuse she'd suffered, but mostly I let her poetry speak for itself. I made 50 copies at first, giving them to teachers, students in the poetry club, even leaving some at the local library. People started talking. Sarah's story spread through the school, then beyond. A local arts magazine asked to reprint some of her poems. A domestic violence awareness group reached out about using her words in their materials. Sarah was becoming known not as the girl who unalived herself, but as a talented poet who'd survived years of abuse before it finally became too much. Her words were touching people, helping them understand the complex dynamics of family abuse in a way clinical descriptions never could. Melissa must have heard about the the zine because she transferred to a different school 2 weeks after it started circulating. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that her parents stopped showing up to community events, too embarrassed to face their neighbors after the truth about their family had been exposed so publicly. It wasn't justice, not really. Nothing could bring Sarah back or undo the years of suffering she'd endured, but it was something, a reckoning, a refusal to let her story be buried or twisted. I still don't know for sure if Sarah took her own life that night, or if something more sinister happened. The police never investigated her death as anything but a sewer slide. But I know this, Sarah's voice wasn't silenced. Her truth lives on in her poems, in the people who read them and recognize their own experiences in her words. As for me, I'm still struggling. I have good days and bad days. I still feel guilty sometimes, wondering if I could have done more, been more patient, gotten her professional help sooner. But I'm working through it in therapy, learning to forgive myself for not being able to save someone who'd been drowning her whole life. And every time I hear that someone new has read Sarah's poems, that her words have helped someone recognize abuse in their own life or the life of someone they love, I feel like maybe, in some small way, I'm making amends. Not just to Sarah, but to that sweet, artistic girl who sat outside writing poems about strangers, seeing beauty in the world, despite everything she'd been through. I've been working on Sarah's zine for almost 6 months now. It's crazy how much it's grown. What started as 50 copies has turned into hundreds, then thousands. Some college professor even contacted me about including it in her course on trauma narratives or something. I said yes, obviously. The more people who hear Sarah's story, the better. The whole thing with Melissa has been quiet lately. After she transferred schools, she pretty much dropped off the radar. Her parents still live in the same house, but they keep to themselves now. I heard they tried to sue me for defamation over the zine, but no lawyer would take their case since everything in it was Sarah's own words. Hard to claim defamation when the person you're trying to silence is already dead. I still think about Sarah every day, not in the same crushing can't get out of bed way as before, but she's always there in the back of my mind. I wonder what she'd think about all this. Her poems being read by strangers, her story helping other people. I think she'd like it. She always wanted her writing to mean something. Last week, I got another envelope. Same black marker, no return address. My heart practically stopped when I saw it. I hadn't received anything like that in months, and I thought it was over. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a flash drive, like before, but this one had a small note attached. You should see this. KK. Who the hell was K? I had no idea, but I took the flash drive to Bruce's house to check it out. No way was I plugging that thing into my own computer after everything that happened. Bruce's parents weren't home, so we went straight to his room and plugged the drive into his old laptop. One he didn't mind getting trashed if this turned out to be a virus or something. There was only one video file on it. The thumbnail showed what looked like a bedroom I didn't recognize. Bruce looked at me, eyebrows raised. You sure you want to watch this? I nodded, though I wasn't sure at all. He clicked play. The video showed a messy bedroom with posters on the walls and clothes scattered everywhere. Typical teenager stuff. The camera seemed to be hidden somewhere, maybe on a bookshelf, based on the angle. For about 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the door opened, and Melissa walked in, followed by Sarah. My breath caught in my throat. Seeing Sarah alive again, moving and breathing, hit me like a punch to the gut. She looked terrible, thin, pale, with dark circles under her eyes. This must have been after I kicked her out. Sit down, Melissa said, pointing to the bed. Sarah obeyed, her movement slow and mechanical. Do you have any idea how much trouble you've caused? Mom and Dad are furious. Sarah didn't respond. She just stared at the floor, her hands folded in her lap. Look at me when I'm talking to you, Melissa snapped, grabbing Sarah's chin and forcing her head up. You think you can just run away to your boyfriend's house and play happy family? That's not how this works. You belong here, with us. I can't stay here anymore, Sarah whispered, her voice so faint I could barely hear it. Please, Mel, just let me go. Melissa laughed, a cold sound that made my skin crawl. Let you go? Where would you go? Back to Loverboy? He doesn't want you. He kicked you out, remember? Sarah flinched like she'd been slapped. He was just upset. I pushed him too far. You always push too far. That's your problem. Melissa sat down next to Sarah, her voice softening. Look, I'm trying to help you. You're sick, Sarah. You need your family. You need me. I need to get away from you, Sarah said, a spark of defiance in her eyes. All of you. I'm going to tell someone what's been happening here. A counselor or something. Melissa's face hardened. No one will believe you. They never have before. Remember when you told your teacher in 4th grade? What happened then? Sarah's shoulders slumped. Dad broke my arm. Exactly. And it'll be worse this time. Melissa stood up and walked to her dresser, opening the top drawer. But I have a solution. A way to make all this stop. She pulled out a small med bottle and held it up. Mom's sleeping pills. Take these, and all the pain goes away. No more fighting, no more fear. Just peace. Sarah stared at the bottle, her expression unreadable. You want me to calm myself? I want you to stop suffering, Melissa said, her voice gentle now, almost loving. And I want you to stop making everyone else suffer too. You know that's all you do, right? Make people miserable? Your boyfriend, mom and dad, me? We'd all be better off if you just weren't here anymore. She pressed the bottle into Sarah's hand. Think about it. I'll be back in an hour. Melissa left the room, closing the door behind her. Sarah sat motionless for several minutes, just staring at the med bottle in her hand. Then she slowly unscrewed the cap and tipped a few pills into her palm. My heart was racing. I wanted to scream at the screen, to somehow reach through time and space and stop her, but all I could do was watch as Sarah lifted her hand toward her mouth. Then she stopped. A strange expression crossed her face. Determination, maybe, or resolve. She put the pills back in the bottle, screwed the cap on tight, and stood up. She walked to the window and opened it, then tossed the bottle as far as she could into the yard below. She turned back to the room, her eyes scanning until they landed directly on the camera. She knew it was there. She walked over to it, her face filling the screen. If you're watching this, she whispered, I'm probably dead, but I want you to know I didn't do it to myself. I'm going to try to get out of here tonight. There's a bus at midnight. I saved enough money. I'm going to start over somewhere new. She glanced nervously at the door, then back at the camera. If I don't make it, it was Melissa. It's always been Melissa. The door opened, and Sarah jumped back. The video ended abruptly. Bruce and I sat in stunned silence for a full minute. My mind was racing, trying to process what I'd just seen. Sarah hadn't unalived herself, or at least she hadn't planned to. She was trying to escape. Holy shat, Bruce finally said. Do you think Melissa? He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I need to find out who Kay is, I said, my voice shaking. They obviously knew Sarah, knew about the camera in Melissa's room. Could be a friend from school, Bruce suggested. Or maybe someone from that poetry camp? I shook my head. Sarah didn't have many friends. Melissa made sure of that. We spent the next few hours making a list of everyone whose name started with K that might have known Sarah. There weren't many. Kevin from English class, but he'd moved away before junior year. Teresa from the poetry club, but she and Sarah barely spoke. Ms. Keller, the school nurse who'd treated Sarah once when she fell down the stairs at home. The nurse seemed like our best bet. I decided to visit her the next day at school. Ms. Keller was organizing supplies when I knocked on the health office door. She looked up, surprised to see me. Can I help you? She asked. I closed the door behind me and lowered my voice. Are you okay? Her expression didn't change, but she stopped what she was doing. I don't know what you're talking about. The flash drive, I pressed. The video of Sarah and Melissa. Did you send it to me? Ms. Keller sighed and gestured for me to sit down. Not here, she said quietly. Meet me at Riverside Cafe after school. 4 o'clock. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, barely hearing anything my teacher said. When the final bell rang, I practically ran to my bike and pedaled to the cafe as fast as I could. Ms. Keller was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. I ordered for you, she said as I sat down. Hope you like it black. I nodded, too anxious to care about coffee. So it was you? You sent the video? She took a sip from her cup before answering. Yes, I should have sent it sooner, but I was afraid. I still am, to be honest. Afraid of what? Of Melissa? Of all of them. The Mitchells are influential in this town. Robert Mitchell golfs with the superintendent. Ellen Mitchell is on the hospital board where I worked before coming to the school. They could ruin me if they wanted to. I leaned forward. But you knew what was happening to Sarah. You must have suspected something. Ms. Keller's eyes filled with tears. I more than suspected. I reported them to CPS 3 times over the years. Nothing ever came of it. Sarah would deny everything, and her parents would act shocked that anyone would suggest such a thing. And Melissa, she was always there, the perfect daughter, backing up their stories. So how did you get the video? I asked. Sarah came to me about a week before she died. She was desperate, said she needed to document what was happening but didn't know how. I gave her a small camera disguised as a USB charger, told her to hide it somewhere in the house. I never heard from her again after that. Ms. Keller wiped her eyes. When I heard she'd unalived herself, I didn't believe it. Not after she'd been so determined to escape. I went to their house during the funeral, said I was there to pay my respects but couldn't make it to the service. Ellen let me use the bathroom upstairs. I found the camera in Melissa's room and took it. Why didn't you go to the police right away? I asked, trying to understand why she'd held on to this evidence for months. With what? A video showing Melissa giving her sister pills, but not forcing her to take them? Sarah throwing the pills away? It wouldn't be enough, especially not against the Mitchells. I was gathering more evidence, trying to build a stronger case, and then I heard about your zine, how you were telling Sarah's story, and I thought maybe you could do more with this than I could. I sat back, trying to process everything. So you think Melissa unalived Sarah after she tried to escape? Ms. Keller shrugged helplessly. I don't know for sure, but I know Sarah didn't unalive herself willingly. Maybe Melissa forced her to take the pills somehow. Maybe she gave them to her without her knowing. Or maybe she didn't finish the thought. She didn't have to. I thanked Ms. Keller for the video and promised to be careful. On my way home, I made a decision. I copied the video to multiple drives, then sent one to Ms. Patel, one to my therapist, and one to a lawyer my mom knew. I included a letter explaining everything, with instructions to release the video publicly if anything happened to me. Then I called Detective Ramirez, the officer who'd taken our report about the break-in months ago. I told him I had new evidence about Sarah's death and asked if we could meet. He agreed to see me the next day. I brought everything. The video, Sarah's journal, the photos Melissa had sent me, everything. I laid it all out for him, trying to stay calm and factual, even though my heart was racing. Detective Ramirez watched the video twice, his expression grim. This doesn't prove murder, he said finally, but it's enough to reopen the investigation. We'll need to exhume the body, run toxicology tests again. So you believe me? I asked, hardly daring to hope. I believe there are questions that need answering, he said carefully. That's all I can say for now. The next few weeks were a blur. The police interviewed everyone. Me, my mom, Ms. Keller, Ms. Patel, even Bruce. They got a warrant to search the Mitchell's house. They exhumed Sarah's body for new tests. And then finally, they arrested Melissa. The toxicology report showed Sarah had been given a combination of substances, not just sleeping pills, but something else that would have paralyzed her, made her unable to resist. The same substance was found in a hidden compartment in Melissa's bedroom. The trial was a nightmare. Melissa's parents hired the best defense attorney in the state. They tried to paint Sarah as mentally unstable, suicidal, manipulative. They tried to discredit me, saying I was just a bitter ex-boyfriend making up stories. But they couldn't explain away the video. They couldn't explain the substances in Sarah's system. They couldn't explain the dozens of poems Sarah had written about her fear of Melissa, her desperate desire to escape. In the end, Melissa was convicted of second-degree unalived, 20 years, with possibility of parole after 15. Her parents weren't charged. There wasn't enough evidence to prove they knew what Melissa was planning. But their reputation in town was destroyed. They moved away before the trial even ended. It's been a year since the verdict. Sarah's zine is now in its 5th printing. A domestic violence shelter in the next county over named their teen program after her. Sometimes I go there and talk to the kids, share Sarah's story. It helps, I think. It helps them, and it helps me. I still have bad days. Days when I wonder if I could have saved her somehow. If I'd been more patient. If I'd gotten her professional help sooner. If I hadn't kicked her out that night. My therapist says that's normal. The grief isn't linear, especially when it's complicated by trauma and guilt. But I have good days too. Days when I can remember Sarah's smile, her kindness, her talent, without feeling like I'm drowning in regret. Days when I can look at her poems and feel proud that her voice is still being heard. I don't know what the future holds. I'm starting college in the fall, majoring in psychology. Maybe I'll be able to help other kids like Sarah someday. Maybe I'll just live a normal life, carrying her memory with me. Either way, I know one thing for sure. Sarah's story isn't over. As long as her words are being read, as long as they're helping people understand the complex reality of abuse, she's still here. And that's something even Melissa couldn't take away.